Hi.
Слава Україні.
Героям слава. How are you?
I'm busy.
Good.
Everyone's alive.
That's good.
So that constitutes a very good
Yes.
and okay, I think.
Yeah.
How are you? How is your loved ones?
I'm okay. I like your answer actually. Yeah, everyone's thankfully alive. So it's been interesting week. The longer it gets, doesn't get easier, does it?
Yes, but also we're setting up into, I think, this routine that a lot of Ukrainians now have developed, because everybody has their own lives going on, their jobs, what they've been doing. But now everybody also is a volunteer, whether you're inside Ukraine or outside, and everyone centers themselves into this everyday work with a very specific goal. And I think it helps a lot of us not to fall into all these emotional wells.
Yeah.
Okay, so Stas, we have one rule for our featured Ukrainians. We never introduce them ourselves. Please introduce yourself the way you want it. Emphasize whatever you want in terms of what you're doing these days, but also let us know what your life has been before the invasion and what it looks like now.
Thank you. Right at the beginning, I wanted to say that also here with me is Maria. She's we're doing this project, Ukraine Explainers Together.
Hi, Maria.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this from the beginning, so everybody doesn't get confused with two voices coming out of my avatar.
Okay, so then let's start with Maria. Maria, you heard the question. Can you introduce yourself to everyone else? Tell us what you do these days and how your life has been before and what it looks like now.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Maria, and maybe I'm a author. Maybe I'm an editor of Ukraine Explainers, because this is a teamwork, I guess. And also right now, I'm a project manager of one project from DocuDays. It's an NGO, Ukrainian NGO, and also this is a international documentary movie festival, which was every year in Kiev for 18 years, I guess. So yeah, I was working there as a communication manager, and right now we have a new project. We had to adapt to all this new reality, and right now I'm working to launch a new project about war, and because of this full-scale invasion. So yeah, I guess this is me. And also I wanted to add that we had a podcast about climate crisis together with Stas, and right now it's on hold. But I'm really glad that all this, podcast format is leaving. And yeah, I think it's kind of important to spread the word on this format too.
Yeah,
Maria, can I ask you quickly where you come from originally in Ukraine, if you're comfortable to share it, and if your family is safe and okay?
Yeah. Right now, they're safe, luckily, and I'm from Kiev, and I spent there my whole life.
Stas, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so actually, half of the things that Maria already told, I think I could just repeat, because we had a podcast together about climate crisis, and we hope to continue making it after the war, because right now it's obviously on hold because of the completely different priorities. So yeah, my name is Stas. I was and is a UX writer. I'm a person who writes content for software products. Yeah, and we also had this podcast, and now during the war we are making this small project, Ukraine Explainers, that aims to basically explain quite basic things in visually appealing and simple format of just cards, 10 cards per topic. Yeah, maybe I can tell a little bit about how this project began.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe even, Stas, we always ask people sort of, I guess everyone's answer to this has always been that something really frustrated you in the way that you saw information about Ukraine being disseminated in the information sphere. So that's kind of always our first question, like what was the main guiding force for you? Was there something, one moment in your life where you were like, I need to do this now because people need to know more? Or was this something that you've always wanted to do?
Definitely not something I always wanted to do. I really wish to get back, to normal stuff that I did. This is just something that we do together because we feel we have to. I don't think there was. Do you think there was a moment when we realized we need to do this project?
I think that I think that it was a moment because we discussed a lot how can we help, and we really wanted to do more than just chaotic coordination and some chaotic random help. So yeah, we discussed actually the whole situation on the media narrative, and we also talked about like how actually people from Western countries, especially from Western countries, understand this war and actually understand Ukraine, and we were shocked that a lot of people from there didn't know a lot of basic information, the basic information which was for us very simple, and we knew it since our childhood. We understood that a lot of these people who write these articles, for example, in a big Western media, which we really loved and read like every day, I guess, before the full-scale invasion, we understood that the whole focus of this media were absolutely wrong, and even, I don't know, even harmful in some ways. Yeah. So we understood that, okay, we need to change it. We need to change the focus. We need to ruin this pro-Russian narrative. And yeah, we should make our voice, Ukrainian voice, louder. So we understood that actually we're not like a bad researcher. I think that we're good on the research, and Stas really writes very great text, I guess. So yeah, we decided to make something like that, just to change this narrative.
Can I ask you actually a follow-up to this as well? Super interesting. What is like the top thing that annoyed you in terms of what like myth or what story or what narrative that you were seeing is wrong and you wanted to disprove and have disproved?
That's a good question. I don't think there was like a single one, but what comes to my mind is, first of all, this phrase of I understand you, but this is like many online discussions that we had with people outside Ukraine. There was this phrase that we heard a lot, like, I understand you're angry, I understand your emotion, but, and then there was like something contradicting to what we were saying, and we felt that, with all due respect, you do not understand because your country is not being invaded and there's no genocidal war in your country, and these buts and what came after were mostly poorly informed and I guess ignorant sometimes. And another thing that comes to my mind is I think the amount of information about Azov battalion and just far right in Ukraine at the beginning of the war. Well, it was insane because we saw how actually loud all this Russian narrative of Nazis in Ukraine, basically that Ukraine is being ruled by Nazis and fascists. Although a lot of people realized it was Russian narrative, many of them still kind of followed it up with questions and with things like, yes, but aren't these claims partially true? Like, is there a Nazi problem in Ukraine? And so we just realized that things like that, me personally, I realized that, okay, there's a lot to uncover here. And we need to do this in the most, like, in the simplest words we can, so that more people can get these, like, dense, easy explanations from real people on the ground.
Yeah, and
Guys,
I also, yeah.
Go ahead.
I also wanted to add another thing, which we see a lot right now, I guess, still. It's about how actually people from different countries who are not from Eastern Europe, they do not understand one very important thing, that all these countries which were under Soviet Union occupation, there are different cultures, different countries with different history, with different intelligentsia and different, artworks and so on. For a lot of them, all these are or were Russian people. And it's also, for us, it's kind of basic information. We know that we're different and this is different countries, but for a lot of people, especially from USA, from even, even Germany, France, it's kind of, we understood that, okay, we have to go back to the roots.
Yeah, to basics. And this is something that we talked about, about the death of this horrible term post-Soviet, which is, labeled, all former colonies, Russian colonies, are being labeled and group us together with, with some countries we do not have anything in common anymore. It has been already over 30 years. So there are a whole generation of people who have nothing to do with Soviet Union, and they're still being called post-Soviet, which is, I hope, after this war, this term will finally die, although unfortunately I think we still have a long road ahead of us. But guys, I wanted to ask a follow-up because you mentioned, in your explainers, and everybody can check them on your Twitter accounts or at website, you set up a special website. It's called uaexplainers.com. And specifically in almost all of them, so for example, Stas, you mentioned about the far-right problem. Then you did fantastic mini guide to Russian imperialism, which, very channels greatly my attempts to mainstream Russian colonialism. But in each and every of them, you kind of also try to share your perspective. Why do you think that wrong or misleading or outright racist myths about Ukraine are being picked up by Western mainstream media? And I want to ask you that because as a fellow journalist, I don't want us to vilify other journalists trying to do their best at covering, and I know that some of Western journalists that are listening to this specifically with this in mind, trying to do their job better. But why do you think they end up, or some of them end up, picking up those wrong Russian-inspired narratives, and how it trickles into mainstream coverage in the west of Ukraine?
That's a really, really good question. I think part of the reason is just basic Russian propaganda, because Russian propaganda obviously is not just Russia Today or Sputnik. It's much deeper than that, and obviously we don't know how deep it is, how deep all these financing routes go, and I think they have made a horrifying but fantastic job of planting these narratives of Ukrainian Nazis across every every point of political spectrum. You see them basically anywhere you do your research. You're gonna stumble upon some form of article or deep dive into the Ukrainian Nazi problem. And I just think that the fact that it has reached all these depths of internet kind of it's like a self a prophecy that turns itself true. The more you say these things, the louder and the more platforms you use, and the longer you do that, the more the bigger are the chances that people are gonna start viewing this point of view as something that should be considered in the mainstream discussion.
Right. Yeah. Well, and probably representation also matters because, that hasn't happened just today. It started happening in terms of Russia having always a bigger platform.
Sure.
This is what colonial empires end up with, a bigger platform. That's the definition of colonizer, because they suppress our voices generation after generation, and then they end up being heard more louder. And even today, like how many, like for example, how many requests you get from foreign journalists to share your opinion about Ukraine, or your analysis? Do you get many these days?
Not really. I mean, I don't think we were the ones we're becoming sort of influencers for maybe 2 weeks or something like that. But like most of people who reach out to us, I think, are ordinary people who are interested, who want to get a better understanding of the historical, cultural background of this invasion. But yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of journalists.
No, we got some requests for more information, for example, or for like more references, or very, very specific questions from different people, from I don't know, from historians and from some teachers, I guess, and we also have some kind of requests from people, from young people who are writing their how do you call it, their articles for the uni, and they asked us for some references, or like, could you find us the articles about this, and this, and of course we wanted to help everybody, but we have a limited resources, so yeah, we also got them like limited kind of information that we could.
Yeah. Guys, I know that this is for, as you said, accidental influencers, as I think many of us are right now. Accidental, not accidental, we can discuss later, but my favorite question, and just because I'm in my previous life / current life, I'm a social media manager, and in general enjoy looking at audience behaviors. I wanted to ask you, what has been your best performing piece of content? Because I think it shows a lot about people's interests and reactions and behaviors as well. I think our guest Maria, who's under Vinok Collective on Instagram, her top post, Maksym, I don't remember, it was I think it was around language. It was around like why why so many Ukrainians speak Russian and the history of that and things like that. But it would be really interesting to hear what your guys' top performing piece of whatever content it is was, and on what topic.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. We also, when we look at the analytics and we see like the amount of comments, we also kind of try to understand what are the topics that actually have more resonance, and not surprisingly, the largest influence was had the post. I'm just going to read the name of that cards. How the world got tricked into believing Ukraine has a Nazi problem, and why it's time to eliminate Russia's propaganda machine. So, although we were writing like on it about different topics, from Russian imperialism to current things, but still this media obsession with Ukrainian Nazi problem received much more attention than everything else.
Yeah,
I think.
and I guess under this post were huge amount of very emotional discussions between different people. We didn't even try to interrupt them because they arguing a lot about this thing. They even were changing with some articles, some videos on YouTube, some I don't know, some theories, hypotheses. So yeah, it was the most discussable topic, I guess.
Can I ask you, because, oh my God, I have a million questions, especially because I went through all of your cards, and, I can assign under each of it, they're terrifically well made. But of course, one of my most favorite is on Russian imperialism and colonialism. So this is something that we discuss a lot with all of our guests, because all Ukrainians are so surprised that after 350, almost 400 years of existence, Russian colonial empire is still not perceived by the outside world as a colonial empire.
Totally.
And in one of your cards, you guys kind of break it down and explain why it has happened and why Russian imperialism and colonialism is different, and how exactly it led to the rest of the world not basically seeing it. So can you do the same job, please, and explain for us here what conclusions you arrived to?
Sure. Yeah, actually, I think at the beginning of full-scale invasion, it was also something that we found, surprising, that this optics of colonialism was kind of absent from mainstream discussions about Ukraine. While I think for many Ukrainians, even those Ukrainians who are not really aware of the term imperialism or colonialism, it's kind of a cultural knowledge. We know we were oppressed, and we know that Russia has been around for centuries. Yeah, but I mean, in terms of why Russia is not perceived as an empire the way many Western countries are, I think it's a complex question, and partly it has to do with the way Russia acquired all its colonies, that it always invaded neighboring countries and it didn't go too far abroad across oceans. But I think even more important here is the Soviet legacy, that because Soviet Union branded itself as anti-imperialistic project and always opposed Western imperialism, I think people around the world still have this image of Russia as the successor of Soviet Union, being opposed to Western imperialism. And of course, this view ignores the fact that internal politics of Soviet Union were deeply colonial and really repressive. I think the Soviet legacy and a lot of unpacking that has to be done about the Soviet legacy is the main factor here. Maybe you want to add something?
I just remember some tweets that you showed me some time ago. I don't remember exactly when, about somebody from abroad wrote an article about Russia, and they had a discussion about imperialism and that Russia actually is not an imperial country. And somebody asked this author that, come on, if you think that it's not an imperial country, look at the size of this country. How do you think it happened?
Yeah, it's a fantastic point, because this also kind of shows something that a lot of folks are missing, that Russian state just changed masks all their time, whether it's Tsarist Russia, Soviet Russia, now Putinist Russia. But this attempt to attempt to spill out propaganda and to hide away and to erase and to, mask all the crimes and colonial crimes that it did. It has just centuries long history, and of course, if you're spilling and spewing the same lies over the span of 400 years, and the rest eats them up, no wonder people are just assume that some things that are lies are true, right?
Yeah. I have a question that we haven't asked yet on our spaces/podcast. And this, I think, is to all of you, all three of you, including Maksym. We've been talking a lot about, the work that we've been doing, the education that we've been doing, the sort of breaking down things that are natural to us, things that we grew up with, knowledge that we grew up with, breaking it down to people who may not know certain things, which has come, I guess, quite easy to us. But my question is, and obviously we don't have 100% answer to this, and we probably need to do some more analysis and studying, but do we think we're cutting through the noise a little bit? And do you think that some of the things that we've been raising with people, such as Russian imperialism, Russian colonialism, questioning the far right problem of Ukraine and explaining, it by numbers, what it actually is, everything we've been talking about, all the education work. Do you guys think we're cutting through? Maybe Stas, you guys first, and I'm sure Maksym will have a lot to add.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I want to say yes, of course. I think there has been some progress, and even in the way what kind of materials are appearing in mainstream media. I think there are two factors that are working here. First of all, it's all this work that has been going on in the media discourse, and all these people like the four of us, like many other people who do their share. But also it's because of the fantastic fight that Ukraine is putting against Russia, and because Ukraine hasn't fallen despite all these predictions, because it still stands 2 months after the full-scale invasion. I think it just created this space where people had to talk about it more in detail. Because if we fell like in the first week of the invasion, I think there wouldn't be enough time and space for all these efforts to actually start making some changes. So yeah, I think these are the main factors.
Yeah, I guess that we have some changes, but it's very simple to fall into this illusion because of our social bubbles, and we see a lot of Ukrainian voices in English, even in media. So yeah, it's quite simple to believe in this. But I see some difference, and I really like it. Especially, I understand that some some big medias, journalists, bloggers, influencers, podcasters as well, they try to find Ukrainian guests, Ukrainian experts, finally, because a lot of them usually have an experts from Russia, and they know how to work with them, they know these people. But right now, I think this process, the realization of to make Ukrainian perspective louder, and that this is the actual truth, especially when you want to do a good journalism, for example, or a good product, a media product, for example. Yeah, you should speak to those people who should know the best. And right now, Ukrainians are now the best.
Guys, I think I wanted to ask you something we often ask our featured Ukrainians, and is this related to Ukrainian identity? This is something we love to ask, and I know in your cards you also tackled a lot of issues related to why many Ukrainians speak Russian, or confusion about Ukrainian identity, and messiness of Ukrainian identity. So, can you share, please, for you personally, what does it mean to be Ukrainian and how it has changed since the start of genocide? Because I know for a lot of Ukrainians, it's been changing dramatically. So, yeah, maybe Maria, you start first.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated question, I guess, because there are a lot of different layers of it. But I'm absolutely can tell that I'm not more Ukrainian right now than I was, for sure, because I was the Ukrainian. But the only thing that I in my family I spoke in Russian, because my family, like Russian language speakers, even that they are, both of them are from Ukraine. But yeah, my grandparents, one of them are from Russia. But yeah, except of this, I was a Ukrainian, very patriotic Ukrainian, and right now I'm patriotic as well. But I realized that right now I became more radicalized than I was, because before this genocide, I was very liberal and even in some cases pro-left, with pro-left ideology. But right now I became more radical, especially about the military forces, especially about the defense of Ukraine. Because it's funny thing, we actually discussed it recently together with Stas, that before the full-scale invasion, we really were anti-war and anti-military, like we didn't understand why, for example, USA has to spend so great amount of money on their military forces, and right now actually we understand that we should do the same. And for me it was a very big difference right now in myself. Yeah, I think that it is. And of course, right now I speak Ukrainian more. I even I think that I can feel it better. I love Ukrainians more than I love them. Of course, I had this respect every time to them, but I must say that before the full-scale invasion, we thought to move abroad for some time, to spend to change this lifestyle and maybe to live in some more developed country, maybe change work or something like that. And right now we understand that the only actually place in this world where we really want to be, it's Ukraine and our dear Kiev.
It's complicated, and we definitely are not at a place to super freely and in a chill way reflect upon it. But one of the things that I noticed recently is that I understood much more deeply this idea, Ukrainian idea of self-sufficiency. What I'm talking about is that our grandmothers, grandfathers, even our parents, they are all very, they all rely on their own resources. They don't really trust the government or state funds. It's really part of Ukrainian identity to hold on to their own self-sufficiency in terms of food, in terms of money, in terms of personal connections, all these things. And I think before the full-scale invasion, I was always a little bit annoyed by this and sometimes skeptical, because I thought, like, come on, people, we need to try and trust the government more. We need to, leave these values kind of a little bit behind. But right now, I kind of rediscovered this part of Ukrainian identity, and I feel right now much more, dependent on this, self-sufficient gene. I don't know how to call it, but and I realized that this is probably the same kind of emotion that our ancestors felt, and during the Holodomor, during the times we fought the Soviets for independence, and throughout all our history, when we were oppressed, people have learned to be self-sufficient and to value this idea. And I think a lot of people are now rediscovering this emotion because, again, we are being somebody's trying to exterminate us, and we have to react.
This is the first time in my life when I'm feeling so connected to the generations before me. That's something that, I told before that it's very hard to figure out your roots in Ukraine. And I'm like in my 30s. And this is the first time when I'm feeling 100% on the same page with all the generations of Ukrainians that survived before us. This is such a powerful feeling.
And I was actually thinking about it. I don't know, this is like so cliche of me to do, but I was I don't know why. I was reading like yesterday, I think, just some of Lisa Ukrainka's poetry, because I was writing a post as well about, how the spirit of resistance has been guiding her for her whole, creative and in general life. And I was also like, obviously, Taras Shevchenko, loads of Ukrainian poets and stuff like that. And I remember like learning it in school and being like, oh yeah, sounds like these people were like really brave and strong and, super powerful stuff. But then recently I was like, oh my God, now I know why they were the way that they were and why they wrote what they wrote. And it makes sense. And it makes sense on a level that I can't put into words in a way. Like it just makes sense why generationally Ukrainians have been essentially talking about all the topics we're talking about today, but just for a very long time in different forms and different, from poetry to literature to art to anything possible. It's just so, I don't know, as you said, like so connected to the way that I feel right now that it's just quite, I don't know, I can't even describe it properly. But yeah, thanks guys so much for bringing it up.
I can only agree with all that you're saying, because I get this is exactly what we've been feeling also, this extremely deep level of understanding of past generations and Taras Shevchenko and Lesa Ukrainka, all these things that we were taught in school and that we know and that we feel on some level, but right now they are just, I don't know, they're opening up in the ways that I'd never actually thought they would open.
Yeah, and actually the words of our national anthem right now, I don't know, have much more sense than I got it, because right now I really understand these words, and they are very close to me, super close.
I was
Yeah,
just side messaging Maxim on WhatsApp to say that I don't know why I'm actually getting goosebumps from this conversation, because I know you know how I feel, and it's just this very bizarre feeling that I've experienced a couple of times over the past month and a bit, when when you're talking to someone who you haven't met in person, and someone Ukrainian, and you just get each other. And I just think that's like one of the most beautiful things that have happened since the beginning of this full-scale attack, invasion, war.
yeah, and I think this conversation could really enlighten people who are not Ukrainians into about the simple matter of why Russia is so ruthlessly waging this genocide on Ukrainians. Because this awakening that we're feeling as Ukrainians about our roots, about our oppression, about of centuries of colonial rule over us, and this awareness that we're experiencing, this is the sound of colonial empire cracking, and they're so scared that this will spread, and then other nations that were colonized or are still colonized by Russia will start feeling the same, and will start feeling the same awakening. So for them, it's easier to exterminate as many Ukrainians as possible, rather than allowing this to continue and to basically end this fucking empire, which it totally deserves. And I think it will end. Thank you so much. I think we've been honored to have you on Ukrainian Spaces. And I hope it was a bit of therapy session for you as well.
Sure, and thank you as well for doing this. I think you're doing an incredible job with Ukrainian Spaces, and it's such an important initiative to spread our voices and give more platform for Ukrainian perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much. And from the beginning, you asked a question about what inspired us and you as well. And I understand that a lot of Ukrainians, almost all of them, and you as well, inspired me really, because these people and you also are absolutely amazing, like impossible people, and Ukrainians are a real superpower.
Yeah, and this is something I want to also tell you guys. This is something we shouldn't be apologizing for or ever, because this is a story that we all shared at some point of our lives. Many times we felt like we're inferior, or that we must to check some boxes to become European or call ourselves European. And this is the moment where we all realize that we are living those European values, and this is not something we should ever be apologetic about it or think that we're not worthy.
Yeah, we should stop self-censoring ourselves moving forward and speak what we actually know. As you said, I think it was super important. Both of you said there's so many things that we know and have known since school, since before school, that now is just really the time for us to tell the world all of that in a way that is accessible, in a way that is inspiring, and in a way that mobilizes support for our country. Because I think at the end of the day, everything we do is to be able to stop this war, to, as Maxim says, dismantle centuries of Russian colonialism and put an end to this once and for all. So thank you so much, guys, for the work that you do, and for sort of, being there for other people to learn and get resources from you. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, and for everyone else, please use and claim Ukrainian Spaces, especially if you're Ukrainians. You can use that hashtag on Twitter. Just suggest us topics, Ukrainians to feature, or just share what aspect about Ukraine or being Ukrainian you think should be decolonized for foreigners. And Ukrainian Spaces recordings also exist as podcasts. Find them on Spotify, together Ukrainian Spaces as one word, and the same on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to rate them. We want Ukrainian voices to trend on the podcast platforms as well. And also find us on social media. We always share the work that Stas and Maria do on regular basis. Valeria on Twitter, Insta, in TikToks, and me the same. So thank you so much once again. Slava Ukraini.
Heroям слава. Thank you.
Героям слава.
Bye-bye, everyone.